Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bookercast, the podcast where books come to life.
And I'm so excited to dive into another amazing story with all of you.
Whether you're a bookworm or just love a good story, this is the place for you.
Every episode, we explore incredible books, talk about their stories and characters, and share insights that'll make you fall in love with reading all over again.
All right, let's not keep you waiting any longer. Get comfortable, and let's jump right into it.
Sounds good.
All right, strap in, everybody. We're heading to Arrakis. We're doing a deep dive into Frank Herbert's Dune. And you want to understand what makes this book such a sci-fi essential, right? You know, its complex world, its impact on the genre. I mean, it's definitely not your average space opera.
Yeah, no kidding. Dune throws you headfirst into this universe where politics and ecology collide, and it all revolves around this brutal desert planet. It's a story that really grabs you and just doesn't let go.
You said ecological complexity, and that brings us to Arrakis. This planet where water is worth more than gold, giant sandworms rule the dunes, and everyone's after this substance, this spice melange. It's not just some random plot device, right? The spice is like the lifeblood of their whole civilization.
Spice is everything, really. It extends life, it increases mental abilities, but the big thing, it allows the Spacing Guild to fold space, to travel faster than light. Without spice, no interstellar travel, no empire, no story even. Whoever controls Arrakis controls the spice, and that means they control the fate of the galaxy. Herbert's showing us how vital resources can shape civilizations, for good or for bad.
Spice equals power. And right away, we see this power struggle unfold when the Atreides family gets control of Arrakis, taking over from their rivals, the Harkonnens. Honestly, when I first read this, I was like, wait a minute, this is too good to be true. It felt like a trap.
It was a trap, no doubt. The Emperor, Shadon IV, he felt threatened by Duke Leto's rising power, so giving the Atreides Arrakis, it was a way to take out a rival. And the Harkonnens, driven by revenge and their own thirst for power, they were happy to help. Herbert lays out all the pieces on the board right from the beginning.
He does, and watching these players make their moves, it's just fascinating. And then we meet Paul, Duke Leto's son, 15 years old and already carrying the weight of his family's legacy and possibly, the fate of the galaxy. The scene where he's tested by the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohayam, that's where we get a glimpse of something extraordinary happening.
The gum jabber test, right? It's not just about physical pain. It's a test of Paul's mind, his ability to control his instincts. And the Reverend Mother, she sees something in him, a potential that even she doesn't fully grasp. She calls him a sly little rascal. It hints at Paul's cunning, his ability to survive in this dangerous world. But it also makes you wonder, is Paul truly in control of his destiny?
Especially with his mother, Lady Jessica. A Bene Gesserit with her own plans guiding him. She disobeyed the Bene Gesserit by having a son instead of a daughter. That seems to have put Paul on this path toward destiny.
Jessica's choices add a whole other layer to the story. She's driven by love for Duke Leto, but that love has unintended consequences, right? It pushes Paul down a road that neither she nor the Bene Gesserit could have predicted. Makes you think, does love, even with good intentions, sometimes blind us, maybe to the bigger picture?
The Bene Gesserit, with their breeding program and their centuries-long plan to create this Kwisatz Haderach, they're playing a long game. It makes you realize that even in a futuristic universe, the desire for power and control, those things never change.
It's like human nature, It transcends time and technology. No matter how advanced we get, the hunger for power, it's always there, under the surface. And in Dune, those drives are amplified to a galactic scale.
And then the betrayal, the one that shatters the Atreides world. Dr. Ye, the school doctor, the one they all trusted. He was a pawn in the Baron Harkonnen's game the whole time.
Dr. Yu's betrayal. It's one of the most gut-wrenching parts of the book. A man who swore an oath to heal, forced to betray his beliefs because of a desperate personal crisis. The Baron, a truly cruel and calculating man, he knew exactly how to break you. Herbert shows us that even the strongest loyalty can be tested and manipulated. And, in the end, exploited. There are no easy answers with morality in this book.
No. He really makes you think. And the Reverend Mother, it's like she almost predicted it. What she says to Jessica, you well know the pattern of our affairs. It's chilling. Like manipulation and betrayal are just woven into the fabric of power. Why not change those patterns? I mean, if the Bene Gesserit are aware of them.
That question stuck with me too. Are they so arrogant to think they're above it all? Or are they pulling the strings from the shadows, believing they're serving some greater purpose? This is what makes the Bene Gesserit so fascinating and a little unsettling, if you ask me.
This betrayal drives Paul and Jessica to escape into the deep desert. the heart of Arrakis. And that's where they meet the Fremen, these desert warriors. They seem almost mythical, like they were born from the sand itself.
The Fremen are Arrakis. They've adapted to that brutal environment in ways we can't even imagine. Their still suits, the way they ride sandworms, their spiritual connection to the planet. Herbert created a culture so rich, so detailed, you feel like you're right there with them, feeling the sand and the spice.
And those sandworms, they're iconic. They're not just monsters. They're part of this whole spice cycle, the essence of Arrakis. It's a level of ecological detail I hadn't really seen in sci-fi before Dune.
Herbert's really tuned in to the environment, to the ecology, the sandworms, the spice, the delicate balance. It's all connected. And the Fremen, they get it. They respect it. Maybe they're the real stewards of Arrakis, more than the noble houses who are just fighting for control.
They have this dream, don't they? This ambition to turn Arrakis into a paradise. Stilgar, the Fremen leader, he says, we change it to make it fit for human life. It's a noble goal, but I can't help but think about what might go wrong. Unintended consequences. Could they lose something essential about themselves, about their culture, but trying to change the planet?
That's Herbert for you. He makes you face these tough questions. Is terraforming, even with good intentions, just another form of control? Are we imposing our human view on a planet that has its own story to tell? These questions are even more relevant today as we grapple with climate change and our own impact on the Earth.
And throughout all this, Paul, shaped by his experiences, by his mother's teachings and the Shuman prophecies, he starts to change. He's not just the Duke's son anymore, he's becoming Wadib, a figure wrapped up in destiny and religious fervor. It really shows you the power of belief, how it can turn someone into almost a mythical figure.
Paul's journey is at the heart of the story. It's a path filled with danger and moral gray areas. He can see glimpses of the future, but that gift is also a curse. Is he a puppet of fate? Or does he actually have a choice? Even if the options are terrifying.
It's a deep dive into the human mind, isn't it? Into leadership and the weight of power. I have to say, I'm completely hooked. I need to know what happens next, what Paul will choose to do, and how the fate of Arrakis will play out.
Well, then let's keep exploring. We've only just scratched the surface of Dune's world and the ideas it explores.
We left off with Paul and Jessica finding refuge with the Fremen, a people who are basically one with Arrakis, like the sandworms themselves.
Yeah.
And then there's this prophecy they keep talking about, the one about a savior, Elisan al-Gaib. It makes you wonder, is it just a belief, or is there something more to it?
The Fremen prophecy is really interesting. It's a mix of faith and, honestly, manipulation. Remember the Bene Gesserit and their Missionaria Protectiva? Yeah, they've been planting these prophecies all over the galaxy, creating this network of belief systems. They can use it to their advantage when needed. It's social engineering on a massive scale, right? But is it for good? Or is it about control?
So they've kind of set the stage for Paul's rise, without even knowing it. It's like they're playing with fire.
Yeah, it is, and that's what makes it so compelling. Jessica, with her Bene Gesserit background, she recognizes those prophecies. And Paul, with his powers, seems to fulfill them. But is he really the Messiah, or is he just a pawn in a bigger game? Herbert really makes you think about the nature of prophecy, of destiny, and the line between manipulation and genuine belief.
Like a cosmic Shakespearean drama, right? Fate versus free will. And then Paul, he goes through this transformation. He embraces the Fremen customs. He even fights a trial by combat against Jameis, a skilled Fremen warrior. Talk about a trial by fire.
That fight changes Paul. He's facing an opponent who knows the desert better than anyone. But he uses his training, his heightened awareness, and wins. It's a harsh victory, though. It forces him to face the reality of Fremen life, where survival is everything.
And he claims Jameis' water, which I get is a big deal for the Fremen. It's not just resources, is it? It's about responsibility, too.
Exactly. Water is sacred on Arrakis. Taking the water of someone you've killed, it's a sign of power. But it's also a burden. You're taking responsibility for their family, their legacy. Paul gets that, and he accepts it, even though it weighs on him. It's part of becoming Wadib, their destined leader.
It's fascinating how Paul and Jessica have to adapt to survive in this completely alien environment. It makes you think about immersing yourself in another culture. Sometimes you have to shed your old ways to embrace the new.
And they both do it differently. Jessica, with her Bene Gesserit knowledge, she uses it strategically, maybe even manipulates the Fremen a bit, but she also learns from them, respects their ways. It shows she's adaptable, but it also makes you wonder, is it ethical to use her knowledge like that?
And Paul, he's struggling with those glimpses of the future, like he's in a maze where every path leads to disaster. Doesn't that make him kind of a tragic figure?
Herbert's explanation of foresight is brilliant. Paul sees those futures, but he's not passive. He makes choices, knowing that each choice has consequences, some of them devastating. Free will versus a predetermined path. It's a struggle. It makes you ask, is it better to know the future, even if it's dark, or to be blissfully unaware?
Meanwhile, the Baron Harkonnen, pure evil, right? He's plotting revenge. He unleashes his brutal nephew, Raban, on Arrakis, trying to squeeze out every last bit of spice. It's like watching a parasite.
The Baron represents the old ways, the ruthless exploitation of everything and everyone for profit, the opposite of the Fremen and their way of life. They live in harmony with Arrakis. It's this clash of ideologies, and it's going to have terrible consequences.
And then Gurney Halleck, Paul's swordmaster. He survives the Harkonnen attack. He's like a force of nature, a symbol of loyalty. I admit I was pretty happy when he and Jessica reunited, a reminder that even in the darkness, there's still loyalty and love.
Yeah, Gurney brings this hope, this resilience, the power of human connection. But he's dealing with trauma, too. The loss of Duke Leto, what happened to House Atreides. Even the strongest warriors carry scars, right? Physical and emotional.
And he's not the only one who wants revenge. The Firhawat, the Mentat, makes a deal with the Fremen, offers his strategic mind to help them take down the Harkonnens. It's funny how even a Mentat, all logic and reason, is driven by revenge.
Hawat's journey shows you the limits of logic. He's trained to think strategically, to see the big picture. But grief and loss, those can cloud even the most rational mind. His alliance with the Fremen isn't just strategy, it's about purpose. A way to turn his pain into something meaningful.
It brings us back to the Fremen and their dream of changing Arrakis. They believe Paul is the key. But as he gets more powerful, as he becomes Muad'Dib, you have to wonder, will he really be their savior? Or will he become something else entirely?
That's the big question looming over the rest of the book. Can Paul, with his abilities, his growing influence, control the forces he's unleashed? Or will he become the very tyrant he's trying to stop? Herbert keeps you guessing. And that's what makes Dune so thought-provoking.
And the environmental side of things. The Fremen wanting to terraform Arrakis. Is it a utopia? Or a dangerous overreach?
It's both, and that's the problem. They want to turn Arrakis into a paradise for their children. But to change an entire planet, even for good reasons, it can backfire. It raises questions about our relationship with nature, how much control do we have, and the potential for destruction, even when we don't intend it.
Dune is so much more than just sci-fi, isn't it? It's a reflection of us, our hopes, our fears, our potential for good and bad.
It is. And as we go into the last part of our deep dive, I'm curious what stands out for you, our listener. What are your thoughts on Paul's transformation? Do you believe in destiny? Or do we make our own future? And how about that Fremen dream of terraforming Arrakis? Noble goal. Or a huge risk?
So we've been exploring Dune's world. Power, religion, and this complex ecosystem all tangled up. And now Paul Atreides, Muad'Dib, he's leading the Fremen in an all-out rebellion against the Harkonnens and even the Emperor. You know, I was reading this thinking, is Paul really calling the shots? Or is he caught in some current he can't fight?
That's what makes this last part so intense, right?
Yeah.
Paul's a messianic figure. He's got incredible power, driven by those visions and the Fremen's faith in him. But the paths he sees, terrifying. It's like Herbert's warning us about unchecked power. Even with good intentions, it can go bad.
And the Emperor, Shaddam III, he's not going to just sit back and watch his empire fall apart, is he? He shows up on Arrakis with his Sardaukar, those elite soldiers and the guild representatives. Things are escalating.
Shaddam, he's got that arrogance of power, thinks he can control everything, the spice, planets, even the Fremen. He underestimates them, their strength, their bond with Arrakis. And Paul becomes this focus for their rage, their desire for freedom. It's a dangerous combination, leading to a huge confrontation.
The final battle at Arrakeen, the Harkonnen stronghold. Everything comes to a head there. Paul leading the Fremen, fighting the Harkonnens and the Emperor Sardaukar. A real David and Goliath story, sci-fi style.
Oh, Herbert doesn't hold back on the action. Sandworms, crysknives, shield walls. It's spectacular, but it's also more than that. A clash of cultures. The Fremen fighting for freedom, their way of life, against this empire built on exploitation.
That duel. Paul versus Fade Ratha, the Baron's messed up heir. It's a battle of minds as much as physical combat.
Fade Ratha, he's a great foil to Paul. Raised in Harkonnen brutality, he's cunning and ruthless. But he doesn't have Paul's vision, his understanding of the bigger picture. Their duel, it represents the old ways versus the new, a dying empire against a rising power.
Paul wins. He becomes emperor, marries Princess Irulan to secure his position, but it's a victory with a cost, right?
That's the question Herbert leaves us with. Did Paul really win? The things he sees, the possibility of a galaxy consumed by a jihad in his name, it's a heavy burden. It shows how even a righteous victory can lead to darkness.
And his relationship with Shani, the Fremen woman. She's been with him through everything. He might be emperor, but his heart's with the desert, with a woman who represents the soul of Arrakis. Can he reconcile those two worlds? Or will they always be in conflict?
Herbert doesn't give easy answers. That's what makes him such a great writer. He leaves us with those questions, makes us think about the nature of power, how complex destiny can be, the unintended consequences, even when our intentions are good.
Fremen achieved their dream, Arrakis is transformed. But what about them? They were so connected to that harsh environment. When it changes, do they lose themselves, their way of life?
It's like Dune's final message. Makes us think about our own relationship with Earth, the choices we make, the impact, good and bad. Herbert's asking, can we change the world without changing who we are? And if we can, is it worth the price?
Dune is one of those books that sticks with you. It's a huge epic, filled with political intrigue, ecological depth, and these profound reflections on human nature. It's had a huge influence on science fiction, but its themes go way beyond genre. A story for our time, a story about the challenges we face as a species.
I think that's why it resonates with readers, generation after generation. Dune doesn't offer easy answers. It challenges us, makes us think. And in the end, it leaves you with this sense of wonder, makes you want to explore more the mysteries of the universe inside and out.
So we've come to the end of our deep dive into Dune. We encourage you, the listener, to reflect on this journey we've taken together. Paul's transformation, that incredible ecosystem of Erameri, the Fremen, and their dream. What does Dune mean to you? How does it connect to your own life, your own hopes and fears for the future?
And the journey doesn't stop here. Dune is meant to be read more than once, to be discussed, to be explored for a lifetime. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Dune. Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep those imaginations burning bright.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of BookerCast. We hope you enjoyed diving into it as much as we did. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts on this episode.
Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this episode with your fellow book lovers. And let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. See you in the next deep dive. Bye for now, and happy reading.